understand your clients not necessarily only at the business level, but at the personal level, to understand who they are as people and what makes them interesting, what their passions are. What I find, Francisco, is that people are much more interesting when you learn what they truly love, and that might not actually be what they do in business. Businesses are trying to create small movies, films about their brand, and look what we do and how great it is and look how perfect it is. But what's really interesting and what customers actually prefer now is the truth. And I tell people all the time, if you want to attract new clients, just show people what you actually do every day. Let me grab a camera and show you how this business works. And it is very, very interesting, behind the scenes, if you will.
Amigos, bienvenidos a su programa 18 Minutos. Yo soy Francisco Rodríguez Aguirre, presidente de Smart Speakers, el principal buró de conferencistas de Latinoamérica. Y hoy tengo un gran invitado que voy a comentarles su bio. Él es Jay Baer. Jay Baer es un reconocido experto y conferencista en servicio al cliente y marketing digital. Es autor de 7 libros, destacando los bestsellers Convence y Convierte y Abraza a tus haters en inglés obviamente. Además tiene la faceta de ser un gran influencer en el tema de tequila. De hecho, es el segundo influencer más influyente en esta industria. Jay, thank you very much for being with us.
Muchas gracias, Francisco. Great to be here. Buenas tardes.
Great. Jay, what is the best way to gain clients? ¿Cuál es la mejor forma de ganar clientes?
I think in my career running many businesses, it's always been to understand your clients not necessarily only at the business level, but at the personal level, to understand who they are as people and what makes them interesting, what their passions are. What I find, Francisco, is that people are much more interesting when you learn what they truly love, and that might not actually be what they do in business. For me, for example, it's tequila. People are interested in the fact that I'm a tequila influencer, perhaps more so than they're interested in me doing books and speaking.
Great. I get that in the business to business, but in the business to consumer, how does that work?
It's actually quite similar. I wrote a newsletter about this recently on LinkedIn, that so often businesses are trying to create small movies, films about their brand, and look what we do and how great it is and look how perfect it is. But what's really interesting and what customers actually prefer now is the truth. Think about making a documentary instead of making a movie. And I tell people all the time, if you want to attract new clients, just show people what you actually do every day. There's a lot of great examples of that on TikTok and other places where it's just, let me grab a camera and show you how this business works. And it is very, very interesting, behind the scenes, if you will.
Great. And how can you grow the relationship with them?
You can't do it all at once. This is the mistake that a lot of businesses make. They try and tell you everything at one time. And people aren't ready for that much information. So you've got to give them little bits over a longer period of time. This is where something like email can be really useful, right? Sending new customers, potential new customers, an email every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks. And over time, you take them on a journey. A little bit more information, a little bit more information, a little bit more information. I bought some shoes from a company in Peru, and they make them by hand. It took 8 or 9 weeks to make shoes, which seemed like a long time to me. But every single week, Francisco, they sent me a different email saying, here's what we did on your shoes this week. And here's Juan, he's the man who does the leather. And here's Rosita, and she is the woman who does the laces. And so every week they told me a story about where my shoes were, and it was fantastic.
Great. And why is word of mouth very important?
Word of mouth has been the best way to get customers since the very beginning of humanity. because it's the one thing that you can't fake. Right now, there's lots of robots and AI, and you don't know who to trust or what to trust. But if you, Francisco, tell me that I should buy something from this company, I will believe you because we know each other and you just said it to me directly. So word of mouth has a level of trust and a level of persuasiveness that nothing else does. That will always be the case. So the single best way to grow a business, the single best way is for your customers to grow it for you by getting them to tell your story to their friends and their friends.
And can you have a strategy for promoting that so that we can have our clients being giving more word of mouth for us?
Yes. And I wrote a whole book about this called Talk Triggers. Absolutely. But here's the thing that might surprise you. Almost nobody does have a strategy. Mm-hmm. We just take it for granted. We all make a mistake in business, almost always. And the mistake that we make is we say, well, if we just run a good business, people will talk about it. But that's not how human beings actually behave. We talk about things that are different and we ignore things that are expected. So what you need is a word of mouth strategy that intentionally does something that customers do not expect, because the fact that they didn't expect it is what makes the story worth telling. So for example, there is the hotel chain DoubleTree, mostly in the US, but there's some in other countries as well. When you check into the hotel, they give you a chocolate chip cookie and they actually bake it in the hotel. They have an oven in every hotel. And they give you this cookie. It's warm right out of the oven. And that's what people talk about. They don't talk about the fact that it has a bed. Every hotel has a bed. They don't talk about the fact that the hotel has a television. Every hotel has a television. But you don't get a cookie that they just made right behind you. That becomes the story. So you have to give people a story to tell. And the story is almost never your actual business. It's something else.
I guess that for this, the experiences that they can have, that's what they can really enjoy, and so they will tell it, the good and the bad experiences. I would think, no?
Exactly. Yes, good or bad, of course. I mean, if you think about reviews, online reviews, Google or any other website, I mean, what is a review? A review is just word of mouth that's going to last in a computer. And if you look at reviews, you don't see very many 2 or 3 star reviews, because what would you write about? What you see is 1-star reviews and you see 5-star reviews, because people feel compelled to tell a story, either a very positive story or a negative story.
And how can you create these experiences so that they make more positive reviews and they talk more with their friends and with people they know?
Yeah, you have to come up with something that they don't expect. As I mentioned, we call this a talk trigger in my book, in my presentations, and it's literally something that you do in the experience that is designed to create conversations. It's built on purpose so that people notice it and talk about it. So there's a restaurant in Los Angeles, and it's in a very, very tall building in downtown Los Angeles. Beautiful steakhouse, very good steaks and big windows. You can see all over Los Angeles. But if you go to a very fancy steakhouse, you expect the steaks to be good. And you know it's on a tall building, so you expect there to be a good view. That isn't really a story because you knew that was going to happen. But what they do, Francisco, is when you come in and you order a steak, the waiter brings you a box, a wooden box, and they open the box up. And in the box is 11 different steak knives, each from a different country. There's a big one from Australia, a small one from France. There's a carbon fiber one from Japan, and you get to pick which knife you use to cut your steak. That's the story that people talk about, is the knife menu.
And I think it's easier when you have the chance to meet in person with your client, and you can give this kind of experience. But when you are a business to consumer and you have perhaps thousands or millions of clients, how can you surprise them?
Same way. I mean, it can do the same thing. So for example, there's a company called Chewy.com, which is a very large pet supply company. They do an amazing program, and they have no stores, no retail at all, online only. Giant company, the biggest in North America. If your pet unfortunately passes away, so your dog dies, if Chewy finds out about this, they will go in social media, they will find a photograph of your pet. They have a staff of 1,000 people on their team who are oil painters. They're literally artists. They will paint a picture of your dog and they will send it to you the next morning with a handwritten note of condolences. This happens every single day to their customers. And it's one of the reasons why they're one of the fastest growing companies in e-commerce, because they understand that you can surprise people whether you actually see them or not.
Great. And the other way, when you have a bad experience, when something negative happens in your company, what is the best way to handle these situations?
Yes, I wrote a whole book about this as well called Hug Your Haters. Couple of things. One, the faster you can address it, the better you'll be, because maybe you can address it before there's even a review. Maybe you can still fix it. So that's why you really want to encourage customers to express their opinion as quickly as possible, because maybe you can actually still save the situation. If you can't, if they've already left a negative 1-star review, etc., you should always respond. You should respond with your actual name, right? Not just as the business, but as Jay. And you should always give them some sort of resolution or what's going to happen next. And the one thing you should never do is show customers your organization. So what happens a lot is businesses will say, well, we're sorry that this happened, but we're going to have to refer that to the finance department, or we will contact the operations department. Don't mention departments or divisions. The customer doesn't care. They assume that everybody in the business works for the business. They don't care about your internal handoffs and systems. Just take care of it, right? You figure out how to do that inside the company, behind the scenes, not in front of the camera.
And I guess the best way to handle these situations is if you have procedures for this. Is that right? Because I guess that for some things you can have procedures, and from other things you should empower your people, no?
Yes.
Or how do you handle this?
Exactly. I don't prefer procedures, because procedures to me sounds like we do it this way every time. I think what you want are principles.
A principle.
You want principles, which is, this is how we handle customers. This is why we handle them this way. And then this is what you are empowered to do as an individual member of this company to satisfy a customer. So you give them guidelines, but then allow real people to interact with real people like real people. I think when it becomes too process driven, it doesn't give you any room to use your own humanity or intuition to maybe do something that truly is special. And frankly, that's one of the things that scares me right now about so many businesses moving to computers and AI for customer service, because you lose some of that ability to be spontaneous.
Great. And how do you turn these bad experiences in something positive that can give you opportunities?
A couple things. One, you have to understand that mathematically, most people don't complain. Now, this might be surprising, but for every 100 unhappy customers, only 5 will complain. The other 95 just stop giving you money. So understand that somebody who actually complains or leaves a negative review cares enough to tell you. They care enough about your business to tell you. And that means that people who are unhappy are in some ways your most important customers because they're saying, you know what, I think you could do this better. And that kind of feedback is really important. Now, it's not always given in a way that's constructive, but the feedback itself is really important. So that's something to consider, that negativity actually helps your business in a way that positivity doesn't. And the second thing is to understand that today, so often, customer service is a spectator sport. So if you leave a negative review, how many people might see that? Hundreds?
Yes.
Thousands? Tens of thousands? It could be a lot of people who see what Francisco thought about this business. And so the calculus isn't just make the customer happy. It's how do you respond? What do you say? Because other people are going to be watching that. And then that changes how they feel about your business as well. So it's not always about turning negative into positive. It's about demonstrating your values in a public way.
Great. And how can you create extraordinary customer service with extraordinary experiences for your clients?
There's three kind of key principles of customer service now. Three sort of unbreakable laws of loyalty that I've studied this for decades across every business category. And the three things you have to do, the three things that customers care about the most, is they want you to be quick, they want you to be clear, and they want you to be kind. Quick, clear, and kind. If you can get those three right, you'll be in very good shape. So it just means that you are fast, right? That you explain, or in some cases over-explain what customers need to know, and that you're actually empathetic. You treat them with kindness and dignity and respect and humanity. If you can do those three things, you'll be in good shape.
And talking about customer service, the customer loyalty is really, really important. What are the three laws of customer loyalty?
Yes, what I was just mentioning, the three that you really have to focus on are those three, are being quick, because people care about time more than ever. Being clear. One of the mistakes that businesses tend to make is they say, well, we already told them about how that works. It's on the web page, or it's in the manual, or in the brochure. Customers aren't going to read everything you send to them. They got other things to do in their life. So the rule I like to use is this. If it feels to you like you are over communicating to the customer, you're probably communicating just the right amount, because they're not going to read all of it. And then the third thing is, as I was mentioning, to treat customers with kindness and empathy. And that might sound obvious, but it's not obvious anymore, right? Customers don't get treated very well by businesses anymore. They just don't. They don't expect kindness. And so when they get a little bit of kindness from a business, it stands out. They actually tell their friends about it because they don't see it very often anymore.
Great. We just got to the 18 minutes, but I would really love to hear more about you being a tequila influencer. Can you tell us a little bit, because I guess that you are very passionate about it, and you are in Puerto Vallarta, you were telling me.
Yes, I'm in Puerto Vallarta right now. We just bought a house here. We love it. It's obviously close to tequila region in Jalisco and surrounded around Guadalajara. I've been a fan of tequila for 25 years. I grew up in Arizona and went across the border a lot. And about 3 years ago, I started to make videos to teach people more and more about tequila, which is the most magical beverage of them all, and got very popular with videos on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And now I make 25 videos a month.
Wow.
And I work with 17 different tequila brands as a consultant for flavor profiles, for marketing, for sales, for business growth. It's an incredible industry. The people in it are fantastic. I've met so many amazing friends in the tequila region. In fact, I'll be there again. I'm leaving on Friday to go back for some more trips. It is a real pleasure and a privilege to get to work in tequila and to introduce elements of tequila to people who are maybe new to it, The thing I like the best, Francisco, is I get direct messages literally every night from people who say, I didn't used to like tequila, but now I watch your channel and I do, and I'm buying better tequila and I really love it. And I've introduced my friends to it. And so it's really working. We're growing fans every night.
Great. And I know that you're a great speaker. What are the topics that, this is the last question, no? But what are the topics that you give conferences of?
Yeah, so I talk about the coveted customer experience, the 3 laws of customer service we talked about a minute ago: quick, clear, and kind, how to do that. I talk about word of mouth, this idea of how to get customers talking. I do presentations on customer service, how to handle unhappy customers, hug your haters, as we mentioned. And I also do a presentation that's just about speed, about how customers care more about time more than ever, and how being responsive and fast can actually be a competitive business advantage. So those are the 4 that I usually speak about. But I do a lot of customization every time because I've been a strategist for so long. Every presentation is different. I do a lot of research every time and really customize the work for whatever organization I'm presenting to.
Thank you very much, Jay. It was a great conversation, and I hope that we soon meet in Puerto Vallarta.
I can't wait. Yeah, there's room for you anytime. Please come. I've got tequila all over.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Hasta luego, amigos de 18 minutos. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Si les gusta, por favor, compártenlo, suscríbanse y denle like. Hasta luego.